from that program. We get it for free, so we get things like gloves, binoculars. We have a bomb detection robot, which would otherwise would cost about $450,000 that we got free from the federal government. However, with this program, the ACPD could potentially also receive military-grade weapons and vehicles, so an M16, an armored personnel carrier, that sort of thing. In the early 2000s, we did receive a couple of weapons from the program. Those were returned. Currently, the ACPD doesn't have any interest in obtaining these weapons, no desire to, and supports a resolution basically from the board stating that we won't accept the weapons. There's been some changes to the resolution that was worked on. Students for a Democratic Society opposed those changes. They have requested a chance to just address the board and discuss that with you all. So I'd like to invite a representative from the SDS to come up and address you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Skip. Thank you, board. Here's a little statement. Dear members of the Auraria Board of Directors.
Can I interrupt for just a
moment?
moment?
Sure.
I'm sorry. Could you please introduce yourself for the record?
Certainly. I'll tell you, that's the very first part of that. I should have prefaced that. Thank you, Tracy. I appreciate that. My name is Paul Nelson, and I stand before you today, a student organizer for the Students for a Democratic Society, a member of the MSU Denver student government, the chess club president here at MSU, which I'm proud of. And I also serve as an organizer for the Auraria Cross Disability Alliance, and I hold this position as secretary for our school's chapter of the American Society of Civil Engineers. I'm also a concerned member of the Auraria community. And though it might just be me up here, I'm not alone. You know, we stand with quite a few people that support our resolution that was suggested as written, and for very good reason. We've been waiting for 3 long months for you to follow through on this resolution regarding the participation of the Auraria Campus Police Department in Section 1033 of the National Defense Authorization Act of 1997. That's the title of the resolution there. We very much would have preferred to have this conversation in January or February, but we were met with continuous delays from your board. This resolution is vital to ensuring that the ACPD is held accountable and that shared governance structure that founded the Auraria Board of Directors is carried out. As members of the Auraria Board of Directors, you have a responsibility to oversee and hold accountable the Auraria Campus Police Department. This means ensuring that they do not receive military-grade weapons or vehicles from the 1033 program. The demilitarization of the ACPD is crucial for maintaining a safe and welcoming campus environment for all students, staff, and faculty. I'm proud to say that our resolution, the one we originally written, has the support of many organizations on campus, including the Black Student Alliance of MSU, the Auraria Cross Disability Alliance, the Anti-Racist Advocacy and Action, a faculty group dedicated to anti-racist action, and the unions on campus, the Metropolitan State Faculty Federation, AFT, and the United Campus Workers. All these organizations have endorsed our resolution. These organizations have worked tirelessly to ensure that this resolution is passed, and we hope that you will join us in supporting it. Furthermore, our organization, Students for a Democratic Society, has gathered a petition of over 700 signatures supporting the complete withdrawal from the 1033 program, let alone the current compromise to defang the program. This shows that the demilitarization of ACPD is a priority for the Auraria campus community. And I will speak to the proposed changes. The notion that we would change this resolution from barring the acquisition of military-grade weapons and vehicles to allowing them in the case that they would be approved by this board or the community strikes me as a little hollow. It turns a resolution that would otherwise protect our campus from a situation like Kent State or Orangeburg Massacre, which I spoke to you all about last time I was here. And it's concerning that, you know, even after talking about the massacre of college students by military force on their campuses, we've reached such impediments on passing this very simple reform. A reform that isn't a crazy radical change, it's a simple one. It's one supported by the data. It's one supported by the community. And it's one that would keep us all safe, truly. One thing that I've been met with a lot of times when we're talking to folks about this change on the campus is, well, what if there's a mass shooting? What if we have something like what happened in Nashville happen here in Colorado? But we're no strangers to that happening in our state, unfortunately. We've seen over the last decade an ever-rising frequency of shootings, mass shootings, and simultaneously we've seen nearly an exponential growth of transfers from this program to rise at like a similar rate. If it were true that militarization in police departments or campus police departments stood in the way of mass shootings, we would see an inverse relationship here. We would see transfers from this program go up. We would see shootings go down. But instead, what we've seen is transfers go up in the billions of dollars. And we've seen shootings go up simultaneously. So we need to reckon with the facts about how we keep our campus safe. Doing the same things that have always been done isn't going to accomplish that end. You say something about the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Well, we've been saying that too. So we're encouraging that you join us with this common sense change and pass the resolution as originally written, originally compromised upon. We understand that the Auraria Campus Police Department uses this program in many good ways. They get office supplies, they get golf carts, this bomb detection robot. It saves us a lot of money, it sounds like. And I'm not afraid of staplers or bomb detection robots. But I am terribly concerned about their ability to acquire M16s or their ability to acquire an MRAP or anything like that. And I think that passing this resolution as it's been amended would essentially allow that situation to metastasize in our campus. There's a very important delineation between the military and between police. Fundamentally, they serve two different roles in our society, in our country, in our democratic country, right? When these lines between police and military become blurred, civil rights are under attack. We've seen moments like this in our state's history. We've seen moments like this in our country's history. And we ought to reflect on that as a very real thing and a real potential threat. The 4 students massacred at Kent State, the 9 students massacred in Orangeburg. I know I'm missing some, but in reality, I'll speak a little bit more to this. During the George Floyd protests of 2020, I was out on the streets with many other students and teachers and community members that were concerned about the death of Elijah McClain, the murder of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and countless others who have kind of joined that list. And we were met with militarized force. I was kettled by police in a peaceful protest, ran through an alley where I was almost trampled, shot at with metal core or rubber bullets, gassed with tear gas at the height of the pandemic. And it's, the conditions that led to that are in no small part due to militarizing police departments through the 1033 program. So it's not a maybe situation. It's a when, really. And so we need to be conscious of the history of our country, conscious of the history of our state, conscious of the way that we police our campus, conscious of our role to oversee the Auraria Campus Police Department and hold them accountable, keep them transparent, protect the safety of our students, faculty, staff, community members. It's critically important. And I urge you to take action on this. I invite you all to endorse it. Stand with us in this fundamental change. You can be part of the good change here. I'm glad to hear that the Auraria Campus Police Department has decided to stand with us on this, because from the get-go they told us we're not using it to acquire anything but office supplies and golf carts, though a core request revealed otherwise. Showed us 4 M16s and boxes of ammunition. And it's incredibly concerning that they would lie to us in the first place about their participation in this program. I think it displays a kind of flagrant disregard for any sort of accountability to the community, any sort of transparency or safe operation. And that too puts the campus at risk. All of us as people that exist on this campus. So I urge you to take action and pass a resolution regarding the participation of the Auraria Campus Police Department in Section 1033 of the National Defense Authorization Act of 1997, as it was originally written, amending this portion that would allow for an exception under the case of approval. I urge you to strike that, because it turns this otherwise solid resolution into a rubber check, really. A resolution that'll bounce right off the floor. It's time for the Auraria Board of Directors to fulfill its responsibility to the community and ensure that our campus remains safe and welcoming place for everyone. This is incredibly critical. And, I would love to be here in January, to speak to you all about this. But, so I want to thank you all for your time. And I want to also say quickly, it came to my knowledge that our student representative on this board was shut out during the last executive session. I find that incredibly troubling. I thought that the students would have a voice on this board, and I think that needs to persist even when we all go into executive session, unless it's so critical that that's not possible. But I honestly think that, the point of having a student on this board, which was something that was hard fought for by students. Back in the 1960s, they fought hard. Metro State College student government fought real hard to have a student on this board. And so I urge you all to reconsider removing the student voice when it comes to executive session. It's critical that they remain here, that's everything I have to say today. And I want to kind of pass it to you to either ask me questions or vote on this thing. Strike down that bogus amendment. It's a little bogus, I'll not be a little frank. And pass it as it was originally written, as we originally compromised on with Skip here. We did a lot of work. And so I welcome those things.
Paul, thank you very much for your comments. You have raised a number of issues that I feel needs to be addressed, starting with the timing of the resolution. It's my belief and understanding that this is the first opportunity we have had to, as a board, to consider this. And so, Colleen, if you can speak to the statement regarding desire to come forward in January and where we find ourselves currently, and then let's talk about the resolution itself, if we may.
Sure. We're always juggling our agenda items, and our timing is very tight. And then there are certain agenda items that are predetermined per board meeting. And then we only have 8 board meetings a year. So we don't have an August, or we don't have an April, we don't have a July, an August, or a November. So then we're cramming a year's worth of work into 8 sessions. February, we had to transition our board meeting externally, but there was a snowstorm and the board meeting was canceled. So we've had our Attorney General here today for our mandatory training, and she did a wonderful job and agreed to cut that training, go very quickly through all of the training so we could have some extra time. So it is not an indication of a lack of interest or willingness to participate in the conversation. It is absolutely a logistical challenge on trying to discuss as many of our board agenda items as possible within the time allotment we have. So please know that.
Thank you.
Sure.
And then perhaps talk about the process that has been undertaken to bring forward the resolution and then the current proposed amendment.
Sure, and I would perhaps even defer to Skip, but Skip as our general counsel, I believe, has been very accessible and has been working quite closely with you and the SDS. And I think you've had some very robust, meaningful, and thoughtful conversations. Frankly, I'm delighted that we're here today and that we're at a point to have this discussion. And I think you've brought forward some really wonderful points for consideration.
Other comments? Janine?
Sure. I just want to say, first of all, thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for what you're doing. And your very eloquent presentation, Paul, really, really outstanding. And I just want to say that I actually completely, 100% agree with your sentiment that there's been a militarization of the police in this country, and it's very troubling. And obviously, we support our own campus police and everything they do to try to keep us all safe. I want to speak directly to the edit and what the edit was intended to do, and if you have better language, because I think you might agree. Saying something that's military-grade vehicle in military speak means everything. And so I want to make sure that 5 or 10 years from now, and there's other people sitting in this room, that they don't accidentally misinterpret what your intention was, which I think you were saying you're okay with golf carts and flashlights and radios and saving a lot of money, which is our fiduciary responsibility. So I'm M16s, MRAPs. There have been university police departments that have bought MRAPs for their football games. I think we would agree that that would be a little over the top. And so I feel like we're in actual agreement. Just want to make sure if you have a better way to make sure that this statement is not misinterpreted in the future, because anything that the military produces is considered military grade. And our police department, while they don't probably need M16s or grenade launchers, they probably do need handguns and could save a lot of money on ammunition as well. So that's where I think I would like your advice on how to make that language be more aligned with our agreed goal here.
Yeah, I know when we had originally proposed a resolution with SCIP, we had used language like controlled property and non-controlled property, but we were advised not to use that language and instead use the language that is written there. Honestly, I think when we talk about MRAPs, M16s, military-grade weapons and vehicles, we can. I think it's not out of the question that we can make We can distinguish between like an M16 and a handgun. The types of things typically carried by police, typically used by police. A squad car and an MRAP are fundamentally different in a way that I don't think is necessarily as vague as could potentially be. And if it did come to question, we could have a conversation as a community. But I do think that allowing for the acquisition of military-grade weapons and vehicles would be a mistake, personally. And so the original verbiage, I think, would be sufficient.
And that part that you just said, if there was a blurred line, we would need to have a conversation. That was sort of the intent of having the board ultimately have oversight over some sort of discrepancy. It's our responsibility to make sure that the university, all the campuses, isn't just run like a computer program with no assessment or oversight. So I welcome other thoughts on how we can kind of square the circle.
Could I respond? If that's okay, or unless someone has a burning. Goodness, I think I don't want to impugn anyone's intent here. I'm sure you'll have to excuse my normal waking alarm. I don't want to impugn anyone's intent.
I was just going to message Paul.
I'm sure you all hear the goodness of your
The military food we used came from the information in the 1033 program, which means I think they want to
there's intent and consequence. Intent and impact, right? I put about 5% on intent, I put 95% on impact, consequence. And an unforeseen consequence of the way it's currently written and amended could be the allowing of the acquisition of MRAPs and M16s. And that's so, insofar as that consequence is a very real possibility, I would like to eliminate it.
Paul, I really just want to acknowledge all of the work that you and your fellow students have done on this, and thank you for your really thoughtful and well-said presentation. So I agree that we just need, I think, a little more wordsmithing here, right? I don't think the intent by the students is no. A flashlight, which is going to be categorized as military grade because it came from the military, we don't want to exclude that, and I don't think anybody in this room wants the ability, carte blanche, or at all, right, for ACPD to acquire M16s. So I don't know. I'm a mechanical engineer. I'm not an English major, so I'm not going to suggest what that language would be. I think philosophically we all are on the same page, and we probably just need, a couple breaths here to figure out what that language is that, to Janine's point, to Dr. Davidson's point, And to your point, right, there's intent and there's consequence. And I think what we sit here concerned about is that we know the intent today, and we also know that there's a high likelihood that 10 years from now, most of the people sitting in this room, whether it be the board or in the audience, probably aren't going to be. And how is somebody 10 years from now going to, how are they going to execute the consequence without the clear intent? And I think we all feel, at least, it's sounding like we're not at the point of the clear intent yet to allow for military-grade flashlight, but not military-grade weaponry. But that's my outside looking in opinion at this point. We all have one. For me, I just want to make sure that we leave with a shared understanding that we are philosophically aligned, and we just want to make sure that when another board is sitting here 10 years from now, that they truly understand what was meant and can execute on that intent.
Thank you, Dr. DeSantis. I appreciate your philosophical unity. I will say that the original way we wrote it would just bar the acquisition of military weapons and vehicles. I think flashlights would be perfectly acceptable under the way that was written, in a way that none of us would agree that a flashlight constitutes a military weapon, right? In a very, not just in paper, but that's an item that's very much available to your average consumer, no background check, no nothing. And office supplies and golf carts, and original way we wrote it spoke to the allowance of such things. And so I want to rebut a little bit, or maybe even offer a point of correction to some degree. And I want to urge again that we look into passing this today, because philosophical unity is as much as I enjoy it, isn't enough to keep our students safe from the threat of campus militarization of the police.
Paul, I also, and maybe this is more a question for Colleen or Tracy, but I would, as a board member, want to know a little more about the statement that you made that ACPD had lied about acquiring these, and really knowing what the timing was of those acquisitions, and it sounds like those were given back, and the timing of those having been acquired, given back, versus the personnel that was in place that was responding to your request. So I don't know where that would come from, but
I can speak more of that if you like.
Well, you don't need to right now, but just in the future.
Yeah, I would strongly encourage that we pass this today, folks. It's the time is now. The time was months ago. I understand you all have other items on the agenda and did in the past, but a pressing issue like this can take precedence. We ought not to act mechanically in how we operate on the campus. We need to be dynamic. We're in an ever-shifting environment, and we need to be able to adapt to that terrain.
And with that comment regarding the need to be dynamic, I think there have been a number of things that have been daylighted as a result of this conversation this morning. Both the hope for acknowledgement and understanding of the alignment of where we intend to be, as long as some questions that I know I as a board chair would like to better understand as we continue to move forward. What I would therefore like to suggest is that, Skip, you continue to work with the organization to see if there is opportunity, find that place of commonality in the language to be able to bring our collective intent to a document, because words certainly matter, not only today, but also into the future, as well as provide some additional information for us to understand in regard to some of the other concerns that were raised, with our commitment that we bring this forward to at our next regularly scheduled board meeting, which will be in May, which again, we just don't have a meeting in April.
Tracy, I I called you over a month ago and left you voicemail, inviting you to collaborate with us on this, getting on the ground floor. And I got no response. I left you my name, my email, my phone number. I told you about who I am. You know, a contributing member of this community, someone who's here all week, almost 12 hours a day. I'm crazy. And so the notion that we didn't have enough time to talk about it, flesh out the details, I called all of your offices, and so did my peers. We offered the same invitation to get in and collaborate with us on this. There wasn't a rush. You know, this isn't a last minute suggestion. This is a culmination of a lot of work and a lot of community support. And it's not just me standing here. Envision the 700 members that having signed the petition. Envision both the faculty unions on our campus, the United Campus Workers. Envision the Black Student Alliance standing here with us today. The Red Cross Disability Alliance sitting with us today.
And we are in no way suggesting that collaboration cease. Instead, we are really suggesting that continue with a clear expectation for resolution and action at our next board meeting.
It's troubling. We waited an awful long time for this, and it seems to me a simple change, something that ought not to wait, something that, there's no good reason for it to wait. There's no good reason not to bring it to a vote now, right? And if we're philosophically aligned with barring the acquisition of military weapons and vehicles, I don't see what else remains to be fleshed out.
And I would just simply add that while we are philosophically aligned, the words on the page, I don't believe would put us in a position to get an outcome that we are collectively looking if we were to take a vote today. So would again suggest that, Skip, you work with the student group, bring forward a resolution that can be supported collectively by the members of the board as well as the student group, and we will look forward to that action then in May.
How will I know that we're not going to be met with further delay? We've compromised an incredible amount on this ask. We originally wanted them out of the 1033 program, but the case was made and successfully made. We saw the case for their continued participation in it. We budged. We were willing to work with Skip here and with AHEC.
Paul, this isn't about delay. This is about finding that place that actually works, like I said, today and into the future with a document that captures our collective intent.
Well, I understand that's your intent, Tracy. There's a very real consequence, which is the delay. We may not be intending to delay, but by not voting on it now, we are delaying. I'm sorry to continue here, but I am compelled to, because it's not just me. I'm not just here with my own personal stuff. I'm here on behalf of many people standing up for this. It's a critical time. I know other members of the board, I believe you can make motions. If you see the reason in this, help make this change. Your students are asking for this change. Your faculty are asking for this change. The staff are asking for this change. The disabled folks on this campus are asking for this change because we understand that over half of the people killed by police are disabled.
So with that then, I would like to query the board. Is there a desire to bring forward a motion to approve the resolution as presented?
Community is watching.
There is no such motion, and so therefore we are not in a position to take action, and instead would again reiterate our continued commitment to working collaboratively with you in a very direct timeline to be able to have the language be modified to allow for us to bring forward the resolution at our next meeting.
Madam Chair, do we have a way, I agree that this is an urgent issue and I'm supportive of taking action as soon as possible and listening to the opinions. I feel that we're very close and can get to a point of language. Is that procedurally, I don't know the answer to this question, is there a way that we can vote without, before waiting until the next board meeting, if we come together and can make a slight modification that is acceptable to our community and the board?
So one way to achieve that would be hold a very short special board meeting virtually. So everyone wouldn't have to come all the way down to campus. We could do it online via Teams or something along those lines, present the resolution beforehand so that everyone has a chance to look at it and consider it that way.
Everybody has had a chance to look at it.
This might be weird, I don't know if this is also doable. Is there a way to vote on the spirit and intent with intention to modify the final language? I mean, I do think it's important that people understand that the board is in support of the philosophy of this and the spirit and the hard work and a resolution that the board is in support of this effort, but not, the final language. I mean, Congress does that all the time.
And talk is cheap, folks.
Well, and we're not, I think,
As cheap as you think it is.
yeah, and so, I'm very uncomfortable for exactly the reason that we are having this conversation right now. I'm very uncomfortable having there be any type of a formal action taken without a document that we have all been able to work on together and agree that it does in fact capture not just the intent, but the continuing expectation of how this is going to be managed. And so I think the best I can think to offer right now is a board motion directing that the conversation will occur and that we will come back at the most early opportunity, whether that is a special meeting or a regularly scheduled meeting in May, with our clear commitment that we are not looking to delay. This is really important and we really want to make sure it works with you and for us as well. So that's sort of the best I can think of from a clear acknowledgement that this is not about delay. This is about taking that next little bit necessary to make sure that it is what we all intended to be.
If we were to pass it as written today and find that there's an issue, who's to say we couldn't change down the line and rectify that issue? Right? We could amend it down the line if we had to. If there ultimately if there arose a problem, we're not chiseling this into a stone, we'd be passing a resolution that is part of what I would assume is a living document, of resolutions passed by this board, something totally capable of change and adaptation, and I would encourage that. We have time to do that. It just strikes me as hollow.
Well, I think I understand my direction from the board. The board would like me to continue to work with the SDS to finalize some of that language that is acceptable to the whole board as a whole, and bring it back to you all for as soon as possible, and perhaps for a special meeting to review and vote on. And I think that's something we can certainly accomplish.
And I would just add to that, it isn't that it is just acceptable to the board, but also in the continued spirit of collaboration with the SDS. So, all right.
If I might ask, what is the language that is so concerning? Could someone point that out? Because I'm a little lost, personally. Is there any suggestions?
Oh, you mean in terms of the edit? It's what I was saying before, if I may. I mean, there's two pieces here. The way that the final paragraph is written, it would remove the board from doing what you just said, which is breaking any kind of, or opining on any kind of confusion in terms of how the thing is interpreted. And anything that the military produces is technically military grade. So I do like that it says military grade weapons or vehicles, but a military grade vehicle can also be a pretty benign Jeep that I wouldn't say no to those kinds of vehicles. So I feel like there just needs to be more clarification. And I do think that having something in there that says that the board still has ultimate responsibility, which we do legally, is also important to have in there for the reasons that Paul just said. So it could be more of a living document where there's common sense opining at the end of the day.
If there's a lot of, as our student representative, it really pains me to hear that despite there being so many difficulties in bringing items to our agenda that our student voice was not prioritized, ultimately. That really pains me. I think ultimately we are here for the students, and I really wish that that would have been prioritized above a training, because ultimately we are here to serve them, and that really hurts me. I think if there's any kind of hesitancy to vote on this because of that provided language, let's start by rectifying that relationship, and if there really is a lot of hardship in getting to that commonality right now, we need to make sure that that happens. So I think that promising that by the next meeting that is to happen, I think that's a good step, but it hurts me that this wasn't prioritized as soon as it could have been. That does, no matter what the circumstances were. And I agree that there could maybe be some better language, but ultimately, I don't see that many issues with this. And I think that I would be in support of this if I were able to vote. I'm not, though.
Thank you.
So please hear us. Like I said, we are here to work with you all. We want to work with you all. Just meet us halfway, please. So how do we work with this? How do we get there?
Again, I think that the direction has been given to Skip to be
Right.
able to do just exactly that. And so I think to me the only point that is unclear is when will we have because I don't know how long it is going to take. Hopefully it won't take long at all to be able to bring something back to us, whether it be at a special meeting or if it occurs at a regular meeting. And I just don't know how best to answer that.
An elected student representative calls, y'all should pick up the phone. You know, because I couldn't reach a single one of you in person on the phone when I called. And I'm not going to say that the student voice alone isn't important, but I'm not just any student. I'm a mover and shaker on this campus. I'm
There are
a
700
fundamental
people.
part of this. And thank you.
700 people, students, faculty. We need to listen to that. Please listen to that. And I know that we want to, but we need to get there.
And we will. We will. So we do need to move on to our other agenda items. I think the direction from the board is clear, and we look forward to having this final conversation at the most near-term opportunity that we have. Again, recognizing that the most outside date will be at our May board meeting, and hopefully we can do it in advance of that. Thank you.
There's no salient reasons for the delay here. There hasn't been any salient reasons provided. You know, the idea that we would confuse Jeeps with an MRAP for an M16 with a pistol strikes me as obfuscation.
Paul, I am going to have to ask you to stop your comments, please. We have heard you. We so appreciate your comments, the representation that you were bringing forward for all of the students. If you are not getting the result that we have directed as far as being able to meet with Skip to continue to work through this, by all means, let Colleen know, let me know, and we will address that concern. So thank you very much.
That appreciation,
Paul, please.
It's an action in the face of 700 students, the organized workers on this campus, the concerned students, the Black Student Alliance, and the Auraria Cross Disability Alliance. You're not shutting down my comment, you're shutting down them. And to offer them in the face of their, I'm turned off, to offer them that in action in the face of months and months of hard work. This has been a 2-year campaign to demilitarize our campus. I put a lot of hours in unpaid, in the cold. We petitioned in the cold, in the rain. We're out there. You know, I know you all seen us with our microphones. And to be shut out at this point, after having personally reached out to all of you, is
And I just have to take exception with your comment that you are being shut out. You are not being shut out. We are seeking to continue the conversation with a clear conclusion in the very near future. And with that, we really need to move on to our other business. So thank you again, and we will move to our next agenda item.
This ought to take priority. This can't wait any longer. We've waited an awful long time for this change. And we've done a lot of collaboration with your very own legal experts on the language of this. And they found no issue with it, you know? The issues arising at this moment.
And to spend some time with you. I don't know if we're going to get anything further done today.
Last time I came to your office, Skip, we knocked and nobody came to the door. So, and
There might have been no of that.
uh,
I'm more than happy to meet with you. I've been meeting with you all, and I'll continue to meet with you all.
meetings ain't enough. We can meet, we can talk about this stuff, or we can take action on this stuff. Because action, what was it, money talks? I'll save the rest of that. But ultimately, we need to take action on this, and action is visible to the entire community watch and
we will
all
take
these
action
organizations,
once we get the language
to
worked out, but
the
right
700
now,
community members, students, and faculty that have signed on to this, they're watching.
we
Truly,
need to
we
move
all
on.
have a responsibility to hold this police department accountable and have oversight.
We're
And
going
by
to do that, but
by
we
passing
need
the
to
buck
move on now.
again, we are abdicating that responsibility. That's an abdication that I don't think is a fair one. I don't think it's one that anyone has the right to do. It is essentially your role to oversee this police department. That's a critical part of it, right? And to kick it down the road again is an abdication of that. If I treated my classwork like that, I'd get an F. You know, I don't want you all to get an F. We ought to pass this. You know, if I treated my job like this, I would get in trouble. The very worst, be fired. Our faculty can't decide not to show up for class.
Paul, I will tell you that you are keeping us from doing exactly what you are imploring us to do, which is our board business. So again, I would ask that you take your seat. You have our commitment to the continuation in very short order to bring this discussion, and we do not intend to bring it to a vote. We intend to bring it back at the most earliest opportunity, whether that be a special board meeting or at the latest at our regularly scheduled meeting in May. Thank you. It is absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Students are involved in finals. Why is it that this has been delayed to this degree? It's just unreasonable. And I don't want to waste anyone's time up here. I don't even want to be here. I wish I was sleeping. You got a guy here with a broken arm. He'd rather be at home healing. And instead we're here trying to stand up for a basic, data-supported, the science supports this fact. Leading research on the 1033 program shows that police departments that participate in it have higher rates of fatalities from officer-involved shootings. Don't blind yourself to the data, or the community asks, to the faculty asks, to the organized student asks, and continue in action. It's the wrong thing to do. We have an opportunity here to do the right thing. We should take it. We should seize on it.
And we are looking to take the opportunity to do a better thing at our next meeting. And with that then, the public comment has been concluded, and we are now looking to move into executive session. If we are ready for that recording, let's go ahead and do that, please. This is Tracy Huggins. It is March 29th, 2023, and the time is 9:25 a.m. This is a meeting of the Board of Directors of the Auraria Higher Education Center. I move that the board enter into executive session for the purpose of receiving legal advice regarding the disposition of real property on campus. Executive session will be held pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute Section 24-6-402, 3A, Romanet I, and Romanet II. A vote to enter into executive session requires a 2/3 vote of the board, and the vote must be conducted in open session. And at this point, I put forward a motion. Is there a second for us to enter into executive session?
I would urge that instead.
It has been moved and seconded. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Silence.
Thank you. We are now in executive session, and we will ask the public to leave, and this session will be recorded electronically.
Shame!
I would ask that AHEC executive staff remain in attendance, please. Thank you.
Not right.
Yes, we will take a 5-minute break before the meeting
We
starts.
visited your offices, and we got silence. We got nothing. Incredibly.
Which meeting?
And it's hollow. Like, the role of this board has been advocated. And the community has watched that happen. A very simple change that was suggested instead of ignored. And those of you who have voted to go into executive session have been complicit in that shutting down. We have a growing list of endorsements. We're reaching out to state legislators. We're reaching out to other stakeholders in our community. Other organizations. This isn't it's Macy got it. Yeah, Macy got it. Okay, cool.
You're welcome. Can you just text me when it's time for me to come back?
Right. I understand that might not be a conscious thing at this point in time, but
Sorry, Lauren.
you know, people are going to look back at this moment on their area campus, and they're going to see who was involved. They're going to ask, why didn't they make this change? What reasons did they give for delaying this change? Unlike the 60s, they're going to have ample recordings. They're going to have ample transcripts of what happened. They're going to have the social media production that the students have made today. We have students reporting. And our allies that brought this request to the board will see what has happened. Right? And instead of just being me here, there'll be much greater numbers, ultimately. Like an opportunity here to carry out the work of the board is being sure. And I understand y'all want to get on to business, but this didn't need to get in the way of any business. It could have been seen through. It really could have been seen through months ago. Something as simple as barring acquisition of military weapons and vehicles is something that could prevent the Kent State massacre from happening on our campus. And I know people laugh that off, but you can't laugh off campus safety. It's critical. Now it's like I'm speaking to a wall. Disgusting. Shameful. The fact that this board believes it can shirk the community's demands on this point, the faculty, the organized student community, is shameful. This board doesn't represent any sort of democratic society, but instead a bureaucratic one, mired in stagnation and inaction. And we see what's happening. We see the lack of action on this, and we are incredibly troubled by it. The 1033 program has had really deleterious effects in relations between the police and between the communities that they police all across our country, and that includes our campus. In the last several years, trust has eroded between the police and community, and it is in no small part due to the ever-increasing militarization of the police. You can see it in the evolution of the Lego policeman. He went from looking like a friendly patrolman to being a fully geared up SWAT officer. So, I know it's kind of light joke, but in reality, it's happening. It's happening everywhere in the country. In June of last year, a mass shooting was committed by police on 20th and Larimer, where 7 people were shot outside a bar. They fired recklessly into a crowd of people, injuring them in pursuit of an unarmed man, Gordon Waddy, tossed his arm to the concert. They fired recklessly into this group. Luckily, they only had pistols, but I hesitate to think what would happen if these police were armed with M16s that they have access to. I would hate to wait for a horrible situation to metastasize in our campus before we took action on it. We ought not to wait for the fire to catch the whole house before it burns down, before we take action. We ought to be able to smell the smoke and put out the fire before it starts. But this common sense change. It's incredibly easy ask. The delays and the obfuscation are very much just that. Metro State Federation of Faculty Teachers would have been endorsed this resolution if they didn't have the confidence. All right, very large organization Black Student Union, the daughter organization, the local NAACP, understand what resolution is now. You know, the
I think they might end up just moving.
resolution found it sound.
That's kind of, I think that's what I heard.
Just say like no military grade weapons.
I
Stay up to date in the chat. They could just pass it as is and then change the language.
Yeah, we can.
Stay up to date in the chat.
Yeah.
And we have reached out to you months in advance to have these conversations. There was no need to delay. There was no need to not have the resolution heard out in the first place. You know, the notion now that there hasn't been enough time or that it's been rushed is a false one. Is a false narrative. I intend to rebuke it. The opportunity was offered at multiple occasions to speak with you all. Dr. DeSantis, only Dr. Davidson. I do appreciate the work you all do on our campus, and that's why we actually went this route to try and make this change. You're all incredibly educated, and you can understand the amount of work and research that actually went into this resolution. And I had all the confidence in the world when I originally called, maybe a little naive. I might have been a bit naive that I thought if I would call you all that you would stand with us on this simple change. But my expectations have been lowered, admittedly. The board has rejected every opportunity we brought to actually see this through. Is now claiming that they're extending one. It's a false notion. It's not true. You called your offices, left voicemails, left emails, left invitations, extended invitations to work together on this. But instead, we were met with further delays. Running away from taking action on this is not the right thing to do. And the community is watching. The staff on this campus are watching. The faculty are watching. Black students on your campus are watching. The disabled students on your campus are watching. The organized faculty are watching. 700 students, community members are watching. It's not just me here today. We stand with the many in supporting of this resolution. You have a unique opportunity to stand with us and you project it. An opportunity still stands. You can see this through many of these. And it doesn't have to be a moment where you're standing on the wrong side of history here. It doesn't have to be like that. The day is young. We can change it. We can change it now. We have power. Students have power. We have the power to change things. And power doesn't just derive from boards like these. Power derives from the people and the students that you oversee. And when the students and the people and the faculty members of this campus see you disregard their calls in this fashion, the true power that this board derives from the community is lost.
I think we should accept it.
Yeah. The idea that we are.
I think we should take this as a win.
Most students don't want to wake up this early, and the idea that these board meetings are held at this time is an obvious attempt to shut out student voice. And we recognize